Welcome to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. It's the show geared toward keeping you up to speed with the latest auto news, event coverage, and expert industry insight. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Avery and John Kraman.
Hey, and welcome to another On the Move. My name is Matt Avery, and joining me is co-host John Kraman, lead TV commentator for Mecum Auctions on NBCSN. John, today's featured guests are Jim and Mike Ring of the Ringbrothers shop. They have really built a stellar reputation for putting together some of the finest builds out there, so it'll be really neat to hear what they have been up to. And then in segment 3, you and I will be diving deep into the success of Mecum's recent Houston, Texas auction. So lots to get to. Before we do, let's talk about the latest Mecum news, starting with there's a new copy of the Mecum Monthly Magazine available virtually online. Your column was entitled The Past Year, so fill us in. What were you reflecting on?
Well, that is a part of my column at the Redline, and what I'm doing is I'm taking a perspective from my point of view as the guy that sits up on the auction stage at Mecum and pays attention to what's going on there. Just a recap, an interesting recap of the developments that have occurred over this really crazy, bizarre past year. Now, your column, Free Revs, has got a really interesting title, 007 Moke. What does that mean?
Well, 007, James Bond, is probably best going to be known for driving Aston Martins, but over the many movies that have been made, he's been seen in all kinds of different vehicles. And one of the quirkier ones was in the 1973 film Live and Let Die, where Roger Moore is seen cruising around the fictional Caribbean island of San Monique in a little Mini Moke. That was a little British runabout. And so what Moke America is doing, they're the company producing all new electric versions of the Moke. They're doing a tribute to that movie car, so it's going to have the same looks. The run will all be painted white and get a very distinct blue and white canvas top, and they'll get some special badging too. And then, of course, it's not all retro because it does have modern tech on board. It is electric, it has 40 miles of range with an 8-hour charge time. And John, they cost just under $27,000. So if you don't have an unlimited queue budget, this is certainly a good way to kind of celebrate some of the more affordable 007 vehicle options.
Hey, Matt, one of the things that was announced at Mecum Houston was a brand new auction at a brand new venue. We are going to Chattanooga, Tennessee. This auction is going to be held in conjunction with the Chattanooga Motor Car Festival. About 600 cars, 2 days, October 15th and 16th. Really looking forward to checking out what might be happening in the great state of Tennessee in regard to collector cars.
Well, changing to some new car news, we know a little bit more about how Ford will be marketing and selling the all-new Bronco when it arrives here pretty soon. And the latest is that about 100 Ford dealerships have agreed to produce a standalone Bronco showroom on their dealership grounds. And so what that would really allow for is for them to really pump up that outdoorsy lifestyle personality that the Bronco has. And they're motivated, John, because Ford has said that dealerships that take that step could get a larger allotment of vehicles when they are available.
That's exactly right, Matt. In fact, the more money and the more ornate that the Ford dealers should elect to build their Bronco showrooms, the more allocations they'll get. Now, it's not a requirement. This is strictly voluntary. What it does is it really takes Ford, breaks them out of the two product lines they currently have, Ford and Lincoln, of course, and bringing in that third brand. So I think this is part of maybe a long-term Ford strategy to really highlight the Ford Bronco, all new Ford Bronco, which we know as of right now is coming out of the gate white hot.
John, and speaking of white hot, another really desirable SUV is Dodge's Durango SRT Hellcat. Man, you and I had a chance to preview that before it hit the market, and we both liked it. Really incredible vehicle with that 6.2-liter supercharged V8, 710 horsepower, 645 pound-feet of torque. The question is, why are we talking about it? Well, John, because we're not the only ones who liked it. The entire market liked it. They scooped up the entire run that Dodge had allocated to build, about 2,000 units over the past 6 months. All of them sold out. Dodge recognized, hey, there's clearly a larger market here, so they have agreed that they will be building more. How many, they haven't announced yet.
Yeah, this is a big deal, Matt, because this is only a 1-year vehicle, 2021. So it's good to see that they've opened up the production numbers slightly. You might wonder, well, what makes this car so special other than the fact it's got the Hellcat engine? The specs are incredible. This is a 5,700-pound vehicle, but it's got a 180 mile per hour top speed. And also, they are offering, as an option, a lightweight sport package. It's just a heavy vehicle, and there's no extra cost for it. What is that? That is the third seat delete. If you don't need the third seat, you want to save a little bit of weight, you check off that box, and you maybe go a little bit quicker.
Well, John, shifting from high-performance ICE engines, let's talk about EV, because it looks like there potentially on the horizon is an electric Silverado. What's the latest?
Yeah, we just got notification that it definitely is going to happen as was expected. Estimated arrival time, 2023, 2024. It'll have a 400-mile range using that new Ultium battery pack that the Hummer will also have. It'll be built alongside the Hummer, and no surprise to me anyway, is they are still going to be building gas-powered vehicles. So Chevrolet Silverado owners will have their continued choice once these hit of still buying a gas vehicle. Once again, Matt, showing that ICE engines and electric power can nicely coexist for many years as we head into the future.
Mecum Auctions is proud to bring you On the Move with Matt Avery and John Kraman. For more on the world of collector cars, head over to mecum.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Some of the hottest builds out there are those coming from brothers Jim and Mike Ring that have a shop in Spring Green, Wisconsin, and we are so excited. Joining us now are both Jim and Mike. Guys, we really appreciate your time, and let's start the conversation by talking about how you guys got started and how has the shop grown to where it is today?
Oh, thanks for having us. This is Jim talking, actually. Mike and I are the youngest of 7 kids in our family. Our dad had a gas station growing up, Skelly gas station in the big metropolis of Plain of 600 people. And we were always just interested in anything that had gas and oil in it. Mike and I would tear lawnmowers apart, or anything we had to do to try to figure out how things worked and ran. I went so far as to make a helicopter one time. It didn't fly. The neighbor walked out and said, "If that thing starts up, you're dead." But no, we've always been interested in cars. You know, in high school, my dad had got us what year Torino was that? 72. A 72 Torino, and I swear every weekend we'd come home, we'd paint it a different color, so we'd go back on Monday and show off our new car. I never got to drive the car because I wasn't even 16 yet, and Mike and his buddies wrecked it before I got my driver's license. So that was one car I did miss out on. We just started, honestly, it was Jim started the business probably in around early 90s, and he was just doing restorations, and he wasn't making any money. And in about 93, he asked me to come back, and misery likes company. And we started just doing some collision work and restoration work. And, you know, you get into restoration, and it was all about what you did wrong with the vehicle. And finally, one day we just said, we're just going to do what we do. And believe this story, it's kind of funny. We did this Camaro that we're really not too proud of. And it was right in 2000. And we took that car to, I think it was Barron Springs or something like that in Michigan. And Dana was there with a guy named Larry Moulton. And they bought that car from us. Dana, he was doing a little auction back in 2001 or in Barron Springs. And God, they sat and talked to us forever and thought we built something that was really cool. And we were real excited that we, you know, but anyway, we've come a long way from them. They ended up buying the car and made top 5 street machine of the year. We've come a long way since then, but I don't think anybody more than Dana since then. But it's just kind of funny how we started out, and that kind of gave us a start selling that car for what we did. And then we started buying and, you know, building our own again and selling them. But that was the first car we did that somebody bought, and we thought, man, maybe we can break even on one of these things. That's all right. There might be a market in this deal.
So how big are you guys now? What's the size of your facility, and how many employees have you got?
We've got right at 20 employees
Oh, my.
right now. We've got 3 buildings. We've got just a lot of work. There's, dropping a few names. We've got Mason Plumley Chevelle up at the farm that, who's a pro baseball player or basketball, I'm sorry, that we're in the works of doing something with him possibly. We've got had a call from Kevin Hart a couple weeks ago.
Oh, my.
Who's interested in building something. We've got a 69 Charger going from a guy from New Zealand. We've got another 69 Charger for a guy from London. We've got a really crazy 48 pickup, probably the most expensive vehicle we'll ever have done for a gentleman out of Milwaukee. It looks like a 48 pickup that ran into a Formula One car. We've got a 69 Mustang going, a pretty crazy car for a guy from Iowa, a 64.5 convertible which we widened 2 inches. That's for the guy that used to own Ravens crossbows, and they made the little foam bow hunting targets that everybody shoots their bow in. So then we've also got a full carbon 69 Camaro. It's similar to the one that we had won SEMA with a couple years back that we did for the guy in Belgium. So we're building another one of them for a guy in California. We've got a lot of work, and we've been blessed. We've got a good team here that enjoys what they do. Small town living, and we're just blessed to have the talent we have here.
So it's really clear, guys, that you have built a almost worldwide reputation for putting together some of the finest vehicles out there. How do you go about selecting which projects to actually follow through on? Because I know that these projects are multi-months, if not longer than that. It takes a lot of resources and commitment on your part. How do you go through that selection process?
Well, this is Mike. We do get a lot of inquiries, but honestly, the selection process gets pretty easy when it comes down to when you tell somebody what one of these builds costs. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, we're lucky enough to have people that have some deep pockets, but it doesn't matter. They all say, ouch. I've never had anybody, you'll hear people say, well, I got an open budget. Trust me, I've never heard those words by anyone. I've never heard that. And we try to build, you can only build as cool as you have a budget for, and trust us, a no budget project would probably turn out to be kind of goofy looking because you probably never know when to stop. So the budget honestly is a good thing, and it keeps us in check from doing stuff that's just crazy over the top. But to pick people, honestly, it's just a matter of who will step up and pay the money that it takes to do it. It's really as simple as that.
We've always tried to scare people up front and then upset them in the end. That's kind of been our motto, to make sure they know what they're getting into before they get into something. And then, Mike and I tend to try to be friends and have always been friends with everybody we've had a relationship with and building a car. And we didn't want to ruin it, lifelong of friendship over a stupid car.
Can you give us a ballpark of really kind of a range of prices to take a car to your extreme level?
Well, we talk about that a lot. I know it seems ridiculous, but honestly, 400 would be a starting point.
Okay.
And upwards to $1 million, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
in that range.
I know each of these projects are bespoke. They're obviously built to individual likes and dislikes. But overall, do you guys have a common theme, or what are some hallmarks of a Ringbrothers build?
God, people ask us that as far as like a style or something. It's so weird because you never think of yourself having a style. But people say, oh, they've got a style. So I couldn't even answer that question. I wouldn't know how to put that into words as far as what we try to do or whatever. I think the biggest thing we try to do is not reinvent the wheel every time. When we have great engine builders we work with, the transmission, the suspension, we we're not ones. We tried that early on, where you try to use the coolest stuff out there that's just out, and it's bit us a lot over the years. So we're more into really taking pride in that our vehicles are to be driven and not really a showpiece as much as just they work. So I guess to answer that, we really try to just use proven products.
How many vehicles do you build annually, and what's the average length for completion from beginning to end?
Well, typically, we're only able to pull off 1 to 2 cars a year. Our Super Bowl, call it, is typically SEMA. And we try to always debut our cars at SEMA. So I'm not saying that there ain't a lot of other things in the works at that same time, but as far as the mad dash is to get it to SEMA, and, you know, show people what you've done. And again, you know, just like Mike said, it's a scary process, and there's some super talented builders out there. It's amazing what these guys come up with, and to go out there and to see what everybody brought and has done in the last year. Now, because of COVID last year, in the last 2 years, it should be pretty exciting out there this year to see what 2 years would bring, and not just one.
Well, they say the same thing about you guys.
So, but as far as time frame, these cars run 4,000 to 10,000 hours. So it's a year and a half minimum. And now with the cars we're doing, we spend a lot more time up front on design. That's even lengthening them to a 2-year process. So, you know, I wish, you know, and that's the hard part for us. You know, we do have a lot going, but when you tell somebody you can't start till 2022, in today's world, people want it now.
When it comes to powertrains, do you guys have a go-to power plant that you guys like, whether it be Coyote or LS? Is there something that you kind of default to?
Obviously, it all depends on the project. You know, we've had engines, you know, like the 69 Charger. It had just a small little Hemi in it when we first built it. He shipped it back from London, and we had bought the new Elephant for it. Waited a year for the engine, but it's finally in and done in that car. The only thing we got to do is build a new hood because the engine's quite bigger. And then the other 69 Charger, that has the Hellcat motor in it, the one that's going to New Zealand. And, you know, on the GM side, we typically are all LS based with Whipple Supercharger is typically our platform, and most of them motors, you know, will range anywhere from 850 to 1100 horse. Just depends on how fast you want to spin that blower.
But they're very streetable and very proven. All of them are just, you know, the crate motors are nice. We do some Blazers. I don't know if you've seen any of the K5s.
We have.
Done.
Yep.
We just run a crate LS with, you know, an aftermarket front drive from Wagner and, you know, Vintage Air. And that's one thing about us. We still have a small collision shop, and we still continue to use parts from new vehicles. And I think that gives us a big advantage is that, you know, some of the latches, switches, when you can stay OE, you're just way better off.
Okay.
And being able to work on new vehicles, it gives us, I think, a little bit of an advantage in seeing the latest stuff and how it's put together.
It took a long time to figure out what not to use, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Speaking of your collision shop, does the we'll call it a hot rod shop, does that end of your business? Do you take smaller projects, engine swaps, paint jobs, that type of a thing, or do you save it up for the big projects?
No, absolutely not. And I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we always said we'll paint your manure spreader if you pay us to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. We do take smaller projects on. It's just, you know, there's a lot of people that come to us and say, I don't want a show paint job, and then we don't know how to do it any different.
Right.
Well, that's usually not the case. They want one, they just don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned earlier that a lot of your builds are debuted at SEMA. So I'm curious, have you guys announced what you will be bringing to the show this year?
We have not. for sure we'll have a really crazy K5 Blazer there. That's done. We were actually going to have it last year, but thank God, because we wouldn't have had it done. We're hoping to have this crazy truck there, which is that 48 to 51, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully a 69, that 64 and a half convertible. And hopefully the 69 Mustang, but honestly, that's probably not.
That's a lot of iron to take to SEMA inside of man.
Yes, it is.
When you look over your portfolio, there's definitely a bent towards classic vehicles, but have you guys ever entertained doing more modern vehicle projects?
We would definitely do that. You know, we do graphics on some of these guys' newer cars. You know, the guys that buy the new Vet and want a special stripe or to be different. You know, some of the Camaros we've done. You know, that stuff's kind of fun. You can get creative with it and you know, make their car a little different. You know, we're a dealer in HRE wheels, so we have that ability to be able to, you know, pick the right wheel for the guy's car. And I don't know if you guys even know this, but we manufacture a lot of our own products here in house as far as for the early muscle cars. You know, basically all of the billet hood hinges for everything. We were the innovators of all that. There's a lot of guys copying us now, but they don't really know what they're doing with it. We've got, you know, from fasteners to door hinges to door handles to mirrors to, I could just go on and on with our product line. That's been very, very good to us.
But as far as new cars, we actually tried. The OEs are really good about giving guys like us a dollar car, as they call it. The problem today is they pretty much give you a salvage title. And we put a lot of money in. It was in 13 Mustang we did. But we found out then that people that at least bought the Mustangs were pretty well tapped out when they bought a new Mustang, that it's pretty hard to sell them a $20,000 body kit. So we took, you know, it's that learning process. You know, you don't learn anything unless it hits you. And usually in the wallet is the best place to learn from. So that's probably not, I could see the Bronco or some other things that would be cool to do to, you know, whoever thought people would accessorize Jeeps as much as they do. So I think there's a market there, but we still have a list of stuff we want to do with what we know. So we don't do a lot of the newer stuff, modifications, and because we have enough work and not enough help.
What's the best way for folks to tap into getting an understanding of what your full range of both products and services are?
You can get on our website, Ringbrothers.com. You know, obviously like us on Facebook. We're always posting a lot of the stuff we do on Facebook. You know, we have done on our website a small Ringbrothers University, which is basically just giving back to the public on showing them how we do stuff. If they're interested in seeing how we clear our carbon or you know, other things, it's just good information that is out there if they want to check that stuff out.
Well, Jim and Mike, we really appreciate your time today, man. This has been so much fun talking about what you guys have been up to, and we certainly can't wait to see what the Ringbrothers are showing off at SEMA this year.
Thank you, and say hi to Dana for us if you see him.
Don't adjust that dial. On the Move, we'll be right back. Our program is proudly presented by Mecum Auctions, the world's largest collector car auctions. Now back to Matt and John.
This spring is really kicking into high gear with Mecum Auctions coming off of the fourth live successful event of 2021, and it was a return to a very familiar location, Houston, Texas. This marked the 10th year of an auction in that city. Here are a couple of the highlights, John. Over $21 million in sales. Now that is up 7% from the pre-pandemic auction there in 2019 and up 50% from the event in December of 2020. There was an 87% sell-through rate with 620 vehicles sold and over 17 and a half hours of TV coverage on NBCSN. So lots going on. John, let's kick off the conversation about the event by first discussing what was the overall feel and vibe on site.
Really strong, Matt. You know, as we've talked about so much, especially if we focus on the year 2021, the continued excitement and support for Mecum Auctions from the collector car world is really incredible. Huge crowds, and of course, the success and the numbers that you've talked about speak for themselves.
So let's run through the top 10 because it's really a very eclectic mix, John, a really wide diversity of classic muscle cars, late model performance, even some vans are on the list.
Well, and that is the trend, Matt, without, giving up the traditional Mecum inventory, muscle cars, Corvettes, 50s, customs, hot rods, all that kind of stuff. Definitely breaking into new ground with exotics, both vintage and contemporary, and yeah, a couple of real specialty vehicles. Let me just brag about the number one seller first. That was that stunning, very highly publicized 1968 Dodge Hemi Charger RT. That was a favorite of both of ours, lot number S168. That was the top seller for the entire event at $231,000. But as we run down the rest of the top 10, again, listen to the variety that we've got in this lineup. Number 2, S75.1, was a 2016 Mercedes-Benz custom camper van. It was all-wheel drive, incredible. It brought $181,500. Right next to that, lot number S124.1 was a 2019 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter custom conversion with a high-end office interior that had to be seen to be believed, $176,000. Number 4, a Corvette from the modern era, but not a C8. A C7, 1 year only, 2019 ZR1 Corvette convertible. It was lot number S170 with only 810 miles on it, fetched an amazing $165,000. Running down the rest of the top 10, very briefly, S139, a 58 Mercedes-Benz 220S Cabriolet, modern muscle. S122, 2018 Dodge Demon, only 3 miles. S131, a 2015 Ferrari California T, another late model Corvette, this time a C8, S120.1, a 2021 C8 Z51 convertible, white with red, 3 miles. That one brought $140,250. A really unusual Italian, rarely seen sports car, S39, was a 1972 Intermechanica Spider with a real Ferrari Daytona look, $137,500. And one of the most impressive cars at the entire auction, Matt, S90, was a 67 Chevy 2 hardtop, heavily modified, but the powertrain was incredible. Plucked right out of a C6, the LS9, the 638 horsepower supercharged power plant, fetched $132,000. All of this adds up, Matt, to a really strong beginning for calendar year 2021, where this auction company has generated around $170 million so far this year.
And John, the excitement is far from over as Mecum has 10 more events in the months ahead.
Yeah, and let's just go down that just to let people know what's coming up. Las Vegas Cycles with 1,750 vintage motorcycles at the Las Vegas Convention Center. That's the 30th annual event, running 5 big days. That starts April 28th. The granddaddy of all Mecum auctions, the Dana Mecum's 34th Original Spring Classic. It's a week before the Indy 500, 2,500 vehicles starring Big Ole. That Parnelli Jones 1969 Bronco, so heavily publicized. That's going to be mid-May. Our debut at Tulsa, running 3 days, June 10th through the 12th. Harrisburg, 1,200 entries, 4 days on that, running the end of July. Monterey, California, 600 entries, 3 days, mid-August. Dallas, once again, 1,000 entries, 4 days in September. Las Vegas, 1,000 entries, October 7th through the 9th. Chattanooga, Tennessee, we talked about that at the top of the show. 2 days there, October 15th and 16th. That's a Friday and a Saturday, by the way. back to Chicago, Schaumburg, 3 days, October 21st through the 23rd. And as tradition, we finish out the year in Kansas City at Bartle Hall. 700 entries, 3 days, December 2nd through the 4th. And it's important, I think, Matt, to mention that the calendar, in addition to the Houston results that we talked about, this is going to be a very strong year for the collector car market. And anybody thinking about getting on board at any one of these Mecum auctions is guaranteed to get top dollar for their vehicle.
You've been listening to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. For more information, visit Mecum.com. And join us again next time as we take you inside the world of muscle and collector cars and more.